In 1881, a man named Xie Qizhou sat down in a wooden cubicle, picked up his brush, and passed the provincial civil service exam. He was 98 years old. He had been taking some version of this test for the better part of a century. And the system that produced him, the system that kept him coming back decade after decade, is still running. It changed names, changed dynasties, survived a communist revolution, and every June, 13.4 million Chinese teenagers sit for its latest version. I'm Sam. The thing I keep circling back to in my work is this question of how the structures we live inside got there, who built them, and whether we see them clearly for what they are or just treat them like the laws of physics, something that just is. And this exam, this 1400-year-old selection machine, might be the single best case study for that question anywhere in the entire world. Because what started as one Chinese emperor's solution to a staffing problem in the year 605 eventually traveled to London, then Washington, then back to East Asia, where it now organizes the real estate markets, the mental health statistics, and the daily schedules of hundreds of millions of families. It created billion-dollar tutoring empires and celebrity math teachers who out-earned professional athletes. It also, on at least 2 occasions, produced rebellions that claimed the lives of tens of millions of people. So here's what we're going to cover: the original system and what it actually selected for, the surprisingly direct pipeline from Tang dynasty China to the British civil service, the modern gaokao, and Korea's Suneung as its living descendants, and what all of this reveals about how extreme meritocracy actually functions when you let it run wild for over a millennium. The Chinese imperial examination, the Keju, was introduced by Emperor I of Sui around 580 and first held as a formal recruitment channel in 605 under Emperor Yang. The Tang dynasty institutionalized it. The Song expanded it. The Ming and Qing refined it into a 3-tier ladder. The Shouzai at the county level, the Juren at the provincial level, held every 3 years in autumn, and the Jinshi at the metropolitan level, held the following spring in the capital, capped by a palace examination personally overseen by the emperor. The physical experience of it was something. Candidates sat in individual wooden cubicles about the size of a phone booth for up to 72 hours, writing what were called 8-legged essays on passages from the Confucian 4 books and 5 classics. The examination hall at Nanjing held over 20,000 of these stalls. Cheating was a capital offense, and the odds were almost comically bad. During the Qing dynasty, roughly 1 in 6,000 candidates eventually earned the Jinshi degree that guaranteed a senior post. Provincial pass rates hovered around 1 to 2%. This produced an entire literary tradition built around failure. Pu Sungling, who passed the first hurdle at 18 but never cleared the next level, spent 40 years writing Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, 491 stories that repeatedly satirized corrupt examiners and broken scholars. He was finally awarded an honorary degree at 71. But the system's rejects didn't just write poetry. A salt smuggler named Huang Chao, who repeatedly failed the Jinshi, raised an army, sacked the Tang capital of Chang'an in January 881, and forced the emperor to flee. His rebellion permanently destroyed Tang dynasty power. Nearly 1,000 years later, a village school teacher named Hong Shuo Chen failed the Guangzhou provincial exam 4 times, had a nervous breakdown, read some Christian tracts, declared himself the younger brother of Christ, and launched the Taiping Rebellion, which killed an estimated 20 to 30 million people and nearly ended the Qing dynasty. Both men are taught in Chinese high school history textbooks today as evidence of dynastic decline, rarely with explicit acknowledgement that the examination system itself produced them. The meritocracy story gets messier the closer you look. The Tang had a dry petition system that let well-connected candidates submit flattering poetry directly to examiners. Examination papers were unsealed, revealing ancestry. Elite academies concentrated in the capital cities, which structurally disadvantaged candidates from more peripheral provinces. As historian Dennis Twitchett concluded, the Tang examinations were less about testing ability than confirming pedigree. The so-called meritocracy was always partly a legitimizing fiction. A powerful one, it worked because enough individual stories of a farmer's son reaching the palace kept the dream credible, even while the underlying system tilted towards those who were already at the top. Okay, and this is the part of the story that genuinely surprised me when I looked into it. Jesuit missionaries in the 1600s wrote glowing accounts of the Chinese examination system and shipped them back to Europe, where Enlightenment thinkers grabbed onto them as ammunition against hereditary aristocracy. Voltaire hung a portrait of Confucius in his library. He praised China in Essai sur les Mœurs as the one polity where superior learning and virtue procured nobility. The physiocrat François Quesnay published Le Despotisme de la Chine in 1767, holding up Chinese governance as an explicit model. A 1773 physiocratic tract openly called for, quote, a great revolution, end quote, to bring Chinese-style administration to France. And then the British actually did it. The 1854 Northcote-Trevelyan Report, the founding document of the modern UK civil service, recommended recruitment solely on merit enforced through the use of examinations. We know the Chinese influence was direct. Pon Suk Kim and Andrew Massey, in a 2024 paper in Public Money and Management, combed Hansard records from 1853 to 1860. They found multiple peers explicitly citing China by name. Earl Granville, speaking in the House of Lords on August 5th, 1853, attributed Qing longevity to the fact that, quote, the humblest may rise to the highest station in the empire, all the result of competition, end quote. Lord Monteagle called China, quote, the only part of the world in which the recommendations of Sir C. Trevelyan and Sir Stafford Northcote have been consistently adopted. Then it jumped the Atlantic. The 1883 Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which ended American political patronage, was consciously patterned on the British reform. So the civil service examination is one of the few ideas that traveled from Chang'an to Whitehall to Washington. And the testing culture now consuming East Asian teenagers is, in part, a Chinese invention that Europe and America adopted, moderated, and sent home. Think about that loop. China invents an exam. Europe copies the concept. East Asia keeps the original and lives with its full unmoderated weight. China abolished the kaju in 1905. The Communist Party revived its structural error as the gaokao in 1952, suspended it during the Cultural Revolution, and restored it in 1977, an event Deng Xiaoping personally championed that is still remembered as a moment of social resurrection. By 2024, 13.42 million candidates registered, the largest sitting in history. Admission rates to any university now exceed 80%. But competition for the top double first-class universities remains savage. Roughly 6.7% of applicants secured one of the about 670,000 seats in 2021, a rate below Oxford's. The gaokao has become a national liturgy. Beijing traffic police reroute buses at 6 a.m. Construction halts within 500 meters of exam centers. Shanghai media broadcast good luck messages from David Beckham. Parents wear red jipao dresses for the auspicious color. And the stakes are amplified by something structural. The huke system, China's household registration system, means a Beijing resident faces dramatically easier admissions thresholds to Tsinghua and Peking University than a candidate from Henan or Shandong. Beijing students receive proportionally many more Tsinghua and Peking slots than all of the Hebei province combined, which helps explain Hongshui High School. Hung Shui is a school in Hebei province that turned a failing rural institution into the most famous pipeline to Tsinghua and Peking University in China. Under Principal Li Jinqi, appointed in 1992, the school imposed military-style discipline in a 14.5-hour study day. Wake at 5:30 a.m., bed at 10:10 p.m., meals compressed to minutes, cameras in every classroom, monthly rankings posted on notice boards. Teachers' salaries tied to class performance, with roughly 8% of staff removed annually for underperformance. In 2019, at its peak, Hung Shui placed 275 students at Tsinghua and Peking out of the 279 total spots allocated to all of Hebei province. They took almost every single slot. Then the state intervened. Cross-district recruitment bans, the 2021 double reduction policy, and by 2025, Hung Shui placed only 45 students at those two universities, 1/5 of its peak. Strip away the ability to cherry pick the best students from across the province, and the results collapsed. The whole model ran on monopolizing talent and concentrated it in one building. An even starker version exists in Maotongchong, a mountain town in Hanhui with about 1,800 permanent residents whose population swells to around 50,000 each August as families arrive to, quote, accompany study. The town schools enroll more than 10,000 gaokao repeaters a year. Roughly 90% of county fiscal revenue is linked to education. Families spend up to 100,000 RMB annually on rent and living costs in a poor province. People's Daily compared the operation to a Foxconn factory. South Korea took the testing culture even further than China. Private education spending in 2024 hit a record 29.2 trillion won, about $20 billion, up nearly 8% year on year, the fourth consecutive annual record, even as the number of students actually fell. The participation rate hit 80%. 87.7% of elementary students are now in Hagwons, the private cram academies. Families in the top income bracket spend more than triple what the bottom quintile spends. By the third quarter of 2025, private education accounted for 13.5% of total household expenditure in families with 2 or more children, second only to food. And Korea has produced something the gaokao system hasn't: celebrity tutors. Math instructor Hyun Woo-jin is a Stanford graduate. He joined the online platform Megastudy in 2014 and reached the top within a month. He's estimated to earn 20 to 30 billion won a year, roughly 17 to 26 million dollars, from lectures and textbook royalties. His Neuron math workbook sells over 1 million copies annually. He bought the most expensive apartment in Korea, a penthouse in Cheongdam, for 25 billion won in cash. A real estate plot he purchased for 32 billion won in 2018 is now valued above 65 billion. In December 2025, Hyun and another star tutor were indicted by Seoul prosecutors for allegedly paying current school teachers over 420 million and 83 million won respectively for test questions tied to the Suneung. This scandal ensnared 46 people, including 72 teachers referred to prosecutors, exposing the very deep collusion between the private hagwon industry and the public exam system. And the human cost is measurable. Suicide has been the leading cause of death among Koreans aged 10 to 24 since 2011. The national suicide rate in 2024 climbed to 29.1 per 100,000, nearly 3 times the OECD average. Students report spending an average of roughly 15 to 16 hours a day on schooling and supplementary study. In the year 881, Huang Cho rode into Chang'an with an army of men who had failed the same exam he did. In 2023, an anonymous Hung Shui student posted a viral expose of life inside the school. The scale of those two responses is obviously different, but the arithmetic underneath them is identical. A ladder narrow enough to be prestigious will always produce more people below it than above. 1,400 years of data make a few things undeniable. China tried state suppression through the 2021 double reduction. Korea let their market run. The approaches diverge completely, and both societies are still spending more per student on credential acquisition than ever before. Heng Shui's cherry picking and Korean high-income families' triple tutoring premium point to the same dynamic. Exam systems reliably concentrate the resources needed to beat them among those who already have resources. And individual stories of rural students reaching Tsinghua keep the myth of the open ladder alive just enough to sustain the whole thing. These societies will keep testing. They have for 1400 years. The question worth watching is whether they can build enough viable alternatives so the exam stops being the only door. Because 1400 years of evidence suggests that when it is, the people on the outside eventually do something about it. If you want more analysis like this, pieces that dig into the systems shaping how the world actually works and who benefits, I write a newsletter where I go deeper on these topics. Link is in the description. Subscribe to the channel if this was your first time here, and I'll see you in the next one.